Welcome back. A growing number of Americans are finding their hope in hard times in a new twist to one of the world's oldest business models. Several internet pawn shops popped up online in the past 5 years. The recession and banking crisis led to cash-strapped businesses and people being turned away for bank loans once easy to secure. And some saw that as a business opportunity. If you're considering e-pawning, that watch that might be on your wrist, keep it right here. A consumer protection expert will join us in a little bit with some advice. But first, a couple of e-pawn stars, you might call them themselves, two partners in the Georgia-based internet pawn website, ePawnMarket.com. Andy Anderson and Dan Delnos is to my right. Well, you're both to my right, but you're directly to my right, Dan. Okay, well, first of all, let's just start off by saying that you sat off to the side and listened to that interview with Wayne Fields, and you are now making a donation to the Hope-a-thon.
For $500.
$500.
Andy and I were both just so inspired by that story that you did. And to think that people are out there, and you tried to do it for 3 days, and you're like, oh, wow.
I knew an end in sight, but a lot of these people don't, and it was inspiring. And so we'd like to jumpstart that. Jumpstart it with $500. We appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, guys. So let's talk about this, because this is very interesting. The recession really changed the customer at pawn shops across the country, because for so long you had that stigma that pawn shops were for the poor, many people believe. But with this recession, we're seeing middle and even upper income families pawning things off because they found themselves in that situation. Is that sort of what you were thinking when you started a company like this? Dan, Andy, whoever wants to take that one first.
Well, sort of. This company, the idea of making an online pawn shop evolved early in the early 2003, 2004. Our first idea was to basically be able to sell pawn shop type items online. In the meantime, of course, we've had quite a recession, and accessing funds via a bank has become very difficult.
Was there some forethought there, though, some smart forethought that this is where it was kind of going with banks and with the economy, and that there would be this new customer out there looking for cash? Or did it just so happen that a recession happened several years after companies like this started?
Well, Andy and I have basically been buying and selling things. We've been pawn hoppers, pawn shoppers, what have you. And we were talking one day, and we were like, hey, you know, this thing is really cool. And me being kind of the small-minded guy from a small little town, I said, let's just start up a pawn shop. And he said, let's start an online pawn shop.
Online, he added that online.
Yeah, and you know, I was like, what? There was no such thing. And we've kind of transformed that idea and that concept into what we have today.
So logistically, how does this happen, though? I mean, if you're online, you're basically, your customers are all over the country. So I would imagine there's got to be some sort of shipping involved of their goods in order to get the cash. So how did you sort of get around that?
Well, we've invested thousands of hours in creating a process that was both safe, secure, discreet, convenient. That's one of the biggest advantages of doing this type of process online, is that it's just simply easy to access. So the way it works is that you go onto our website, ePawnMarket.com. You fill out one of our Get Started forms, which basically is an application for a collateral-based loan, a pawn loan. And once you do that, we provide the customer with an evaluation of their item. So say they want a $1,000 loan. We need an item that's worth $1,000 for collateral for that loan. Once we've made that evaluation, we provide the customer with a certificate of insurance, a free shipping label, and they ship that item to us. And once we receive that item, we deposit the money directly into their checking account.
Just like that. So bigger items, you don't even deal with those because of the shipping costs, I would imagine.
That's an interesting point.
That's a great point. And a lot of the new online pawn startups don't deal with that. They simply say, we don't deal with those items.
Yeah.
Andy and I thought that was a little short-sighted, because these people need help. And so rather than just casting them off because they didn't have an item that we could use, Andy and I decided to align ourselves with certain local pawnbrokers that we think would be able to treat the customer fairly, offer fair rates.
You refer them to these brick and mortar shops.
That's correct.
Brick and mortar shops.
That's exactly correct.
And even on your website, you call yourself customer advocates. But it's still a business. You need to make money. So how do you make your money?
Well, here's the situation. Traditionally, the pawn shop industry has sort of a stigma attached to it that, basically they're charging extremely high interest rates and that sort of thing. From the beginning, we established a very large financial backing behind us that allowed us to lower our interest rates as low as 2.99% per month. Now, we would like to say up front, of course, these are set up as collateral-based short-term loans. This is not a long-term fix to a financial problem that a family may be having. But what it could do is provide $3,000 or $4,000 for a few months to get a family through a tight spot. And that's what the internet has done. It's kind of exposed us to a clientele, a customer base that would have never even thought of using a pawn shop service for a short-term loan.
I noticed you said as low as 2.99%. How high can they go, and how do you determine what the interest rate will be on a certain item?
It depends really on the depreciation or what we expect the depreciation to be. Again, we've sort of developed a proprietary system of evaluation so that we actually evaluate the item before it's ever shipped to us directly. Our interest rate is, we vary between 2.99% and 5.99% per month. Okay. And so it all depends on the item. Obviously, things like we make loans on precious metal and that sort of thing. A lot of people, especially in the recent investment time, have purchased a lot of precious metal and things. They don't necessarily want to sell it, but they would like to maybe cash out on it for a few months to use that equity. So obviously those are the type of loans that we are very willing to make low interest rates.
And Dan, I know, in your conversations online with people who want to do business with you, you learn a little bit about people you're doing business with, and some of them are businesses themselves. Who are your customers?
That's a great question, Ben. Our customers range from people making $8 an hour to people making 6 figures a year. And our customers come to us in need. And the guy that was making 6 figures a year and loses his job, and yeah, he can go find another job, but he's going to need a month or two to go find a job and an income that can support his previous lifestyle. So that Rolex that's on his watch, on his wrist, the gold chain that's around his neck, that's not putting food on the table for his children. And that's an important concept, that the whole concept of pawning, the whole concept of who a pawn customer is really changing.
Well, Andy and Dan, thanks so much. We appreciate it. And you do have competition. You're not the only one out there. There are several websites, though, that
there are, absolutely. It's a growing industry.
Y'all are one of the top ones, though. You're up there. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
And when we come back, we will talk with Karen Jenkins about what you should know before you pawn an item online.
Got a trade and